So shall we start, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
So good morning to all once again. Welcome back to the second session of the AICTE sponsored FDP program organized by the Department of Biotechnology, the Oxford College of Engineering. Today we have for this session Dr. C. Dayananda as our guest speaker. He is the founder and CEO of E2E Biotech Private Limited. It is a Atal Incubation Center in Jyoti Institute of Technology, Bangalore. Dayanand Chandrappa has obtained his MSc in biochemistry from Kuvempu University and he holds a PhD in biochemistry from CSIR CFTRI, University of Mysore. He also has 4 years of postdoctoral fellowship from Lincoln University, USA, Missouri University of Science and Technology, USA, and University of Exeter, UK. He has over 15 years of R&D experience in life sciences, particularly algal biotechnology, synthetic biology, and microbiology. He is in the editorial board of few international and national scientific journals and is an independent reviewer for many journals. He has served as reviewer for research projects and grants of Department of Science and Technology and reviewed biotechnology policy for Government of Karnataka. He has participated in brainstorm session organized by both state and central government agencies for developing synthetic biology regulations. He has several research articles to his credit with 1,630 citations, 12 H index and ITAN index of 12. He has founded E2E Biotech Private Limited in the year 2016 with a vision to develop eco-friendly technologies, products and process for high-value metabolites having applications in food, pharma and agriculture using biotechnology and synthetic biology interventions and strategies. Sir, we are very delighted to have you as a speaker today. So on behalf of student staff and the management of the Oxford College of Engineering, I, Salma, Assistant Professor at the Department of Biotechnology, wholeheartedly extend our warm welcome to you, sir. So it is over to you to take over our session.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope my voice is clear. Hello.
Yes, sir, you may please proceed.
Okay.
We can hear.
Good morning, Dr. Salmo and all the faculty and staff of Oxford Engineering College, and also all the participants of this event. Today, I would like to discuss about bio innovation and entrepreneurial opportunities and the challenges for developing countries. See, first we need to understand what is entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is the act of creating a business or a series of businesses while building and scaling into a greater to generate a profit. So basically, entrepreneurship is all about making money by creating a scalable technologies. So there are different types of entrepreneurships. So small businesses that we see around us, right? Consultants, grocery stores, travel agents, and some commercial shops, carpenters, plumbers, electricians, and so on. So these are sort of lifestyle businesses where people can build their lives along with these small businesses. And there are some scalable startups, some sort of Airbnb, Amazon, Google, Facebook. These are like these are scalable as time grows, and they can take up smaller companies, and then they become bigger and bigger in the due course. And there are large companies, some sort of large companies like Indian Oil Corporation, and then ONGC, Tata, Coal India Limited, Tata Motors, and so on. These are highly proven and gained companies having a huge revenue and workforce. And there are social companies that we often see around us, some sort of Dharmasthala Rural Cooperative Society. These are sort of non-profit or for profit or sort of hybrids, where the institute or an organization sustained by itself by making whatever the money that is required for sustainability, and at the same time they work for upliftment of people from poverty, and also to generate employment, to reduce the unemployment in the society, and also work towards reducing hunger, and also help the people in need, some sort of drug abuse, and so on. These are some sort of social entrepreneurship that we see around us. And once we say about entrepreneurship, we should also understand innovation, because these are the very critical things for any startup or an entrepreneur to get succeeded in his venture. They need to have a innovative technologies, or an innovative process, or innovative business model. These kind of things are very much an essential criteria. So what exactly here it refers is, innovation is to creating more effective process, or products, or ideas, or services, and so on. So for a business, what exactly it means is implementing those ideas and improving in those services, or creating dynamic products that can act as a catalyst to make your business grow, and also could adopt in the marketplace to sustain. So this is the sort of innovation that is required to be successful in the marketplace. And there are different types of innovations, and we could see there are so many companies that work on all these things, and certain companies now their core competency is in business model. Say for example, Ola. See, they don't. I mean, earlier they didn't have a taxi of their own, but they were able to develop a business model through which they become a huge company. So here, the simple business model could take the things forward. And there are service-based companies like IT companies, where they provide service and generate value for their customers, or their clients. Whereas there are certain only few innovative, or sorry, disruptive companies, where they develop a disruptive technology. Recently, you might have heard about uh, Tesla and Bolt, where they developed batteries that sustain larger time, and it becomes very energy friendly. These are sort of disruptive technologies, where you can monetize these disruptive technologies to become a bigger company. And at the same time, process-based companies, where food processing companies like MTR, the MTR, and Britannia, Nestle, and there are so many food processing companies like that. There are other companies where they also process crude oil, and so on. So where there are companies, their core competency is into process, where they add some value into the raw material, and they create a new sort of product by which they could develop a new product. And there are companies where they only sell the product, or product innovative companies. Some, there are at the same time, one company could have all these things included in their innovation process. Say for example, some companies like Apple, where they have a product, where they have their service, they have business model, and they do have a disruptive technology. And this is the kind of, these kind of innovations are pretty much required for any startup or an entrepreneur to begin with. And there are some companies where they use this incremental technologies. If they fail to invent and renovate technologies, they fail. Say for example, in the 1990s, Kodak was one of the biggest company producing cameras, and copying films, and so on. But unfortunately, they couldn't adapt to the new generation technologies, and they become extinct, or close to extinct in the business place or in the marketplace. So there are companies, they do innovate incrementally. Say even you might see there are companies like Samsung, Sony. They come with AMOLED TV first, and they come with speakers, and there are different technologies they can release incrementally, and every year or each year you see Apple releases a new product, or Samsung releases new product. So what I mean to stress upon is it requires a sort of innovative ideas in them, or imbibing those innovation process or a model into the company. Or and there are companies they offer certain kind of services what their customers supposed to do. Say for example, fintech companies, what we use every day, like Paytm, Google Pay, and so on. Where these are like other companies where they help the people to get their job done. And these days, Amazon also join into this process. And also innovations and paradigm shift technologies, something like a recent example I would quote, Moderna, that comes with mRNA vaccine for COVID-19. It's a paradigm shift in the technology. Earlier, we used to have a adenovirus-based platform for producing vaccines and so on. Now, mRNA-based platform has emerged as a technology where it could, generate huge market and also solve a huge social problems, and new ways in which people manage and share resources. Say, for example, there are companies like Oyo, where people can share their apartments or part of their home or some rooms. They generate, I mean, you mutually benefit to the company as well as to the people involved in that venture. So this is how the innovations could create or monetize based on the technology is concerned. So to understand better, I would just go with some of the opinions and their statements of successful entrepreneurs of the world. Say, for example, as we see in here, what Jack Ma says is, if you want to grow, find a good opportunity. If you want to be a great company, then think about what social problem you could solve. So basically, identifying a right problem, that itself is an opportunity. Once you identify a right problem, then you could solve that problem, then turn that problem into a more marketable product or a service or a process and so on. And the same thing here, Steve Jobs also says the same thing. If you define the problem correctly, you almost have the solution. So to provide any services or a product to develop, so we need to understand the problem correctly. Is it really required? Say probably some of you in the participants, you might know earlier Orkut has came into the market, but it couldn't sustain because it was too early to that particular generation. Later on, probably Facebook came and take that forward. Earlier some of us were in the Orkut. So what I meant to say is the timing, the sustainable venture, and you need to have that patience, or you need to educate the people to get into that product. So it's a very, I mean, where the business model also matters. And also here, what Zuckerberg says, a Facebook founder, ideas not come out of fully formed. They only become clear as you work on them. You just have to get started. So basically, you cannot wait till you get a best product, or you cannot just make the complete product. There is nothing called the best product. You need to innovate continuously, and you need to test the market. Something like in a business world, what people call it as push and pull theory. You make certain product and push it into the market and see what the response from the customers, consumers, or the clients, or business, or the marketplace. Then you develop accordingly to the needs and the necessities of the market. So you cannot wait till you have a best product to be get formed. So that is what Zuckerberg says. And here Dhirubhai Ambani, one of the India's well-known entrepreneur. So what he says is think big, think fast, think ahead. Ideas are no one's monopoly. I mean, we need not to wait that we don't have money, we don't have a team, we don't have a resources. Of course, yes, these are challenges that we need to go through. But at the same time, when you think big, when you have a big dreams, when you could think ahead of times, then certainly you can monetize those ideas into great product or services in the market. And here I like this pretty much. You know, what Drew Houston says is, don't worry about failure. You only have to be right once. What exactly it means, you fail. So, startup fails, entrepreneurs fails, but not necessarily whatever the idea that you come up with, that idea you are going to make money. So basically, you need to be right once. That one product, that one service, that one technology could make you more successful. So basically, we need to have that patience and have that kind of a commitment and courage to take that entrepreneurial journey forward. So that's the very much needed or very essential quality to be an entrepreneur. So here, Richard Branson, one of the successful serial entrepreneur, what his opinion is, entrepreneurship is about turning what excites you in life into capital, so that you can do more of it and more move forward with it. So basically you need to get into a sort of venture that really excites you. That's what you really wanted to do. When you mix your fashion and your commitment with the kind of thing that excites you, then really magic happens. That's what he meant to be. So what Narayan Murthy, N.R. Narayan Murthy says, the Infosys founder, you do not have to be the son of a rich man to be an entrepreneur. So today's kids are far more willing to take risk because they have seen high rewards. So N.R. Narayan Murthy, is the son of a teacher, right? So basically, you need not to come from a very rich background to be an entrepreneur. Basically, you need to have that courage to take risk. And in business world, we say high risk, high reward. So, I mean, if you, I mean, basically, it's not like taking a blind risk. It's all about taking a calculated risk. And Kiran Mazumdar says, an entrepreneur's life is always a continuous journey. I mean, once you become successful, it is not that it is the end of it. So it's a continuous journey where you need to innovate continuously in all spheres of innovations, possibly, as we mentioned, process, business. These are the things that we need to inculcate in our company or in the entrepreneurial journey. So it's a never-ending process. You need to be continuous. Though that's the kind of joy that you can get through this entrepreneurship or entrepreneurial journey is such a wonderful journey where you need to learn continuously, where the challenges are always. So this is what Kiran Mazumdar's opinion is about entrepreneurship. And this is from a Practos founder. What he says is, never hire someone to do your initial sales. In fact, you should acquire your first 100 customers yourself. I mean, of course, this is for a Practo, but at least for, I mean, your customers could be 1, 2, 3, 10. It doesn't matter. But you being an entrepreneur, you should work hard to get those initial sales done. Then you understand the hardship that involves, what are the needs and necessities of your customer. Accordingly, you can innovate your product, process, services, or technologies that required by the market, by the people. So, and very important lesson that we could take from Jack Ma, a real businessman or an entrepreneur has no enemies. Once he understands this, the sky is the limit. I mean, there is nothing called a competition here. And you need not to call, I mean, there is a misunderstanding that if I produce something which is cheaper, so I could be successful. It's not really works that way. It's all about, is it your product is good in terms of qualities, in terms of the kind of service that you offer, all that matters. And then we need not to have enmity in any of the competitive world. We can only improve your product through innovative strategies, innovative business models, innovative ideas, and innovative marketing, and so on. So, I mean, with this backdrop, I would like to bring what exactly India needs and where we stand today. So, among the biggest economies as of now, India stands sixth position. And due to this COVID, I mean, in 2019, India was recording around 7.4% GDP in the pre-pandemics. And after pandemics, it has come down to 4 and 4.8, and now probably it's around 5-ish. What it exactly says is India is one of the largest economies in the world, and it could become third largest economy by another 10 to 15 years time. So to be the successful or biggest economies in the world, India need to get up and fix a lot of issues in the societal strata. See, as you see in here, India ranks 135th position among the 175 nations that are assessed for Global Human Development Index. So we stay far behind, though we stand sixth largest economy in the world. But once it comes to Global Human Index, I mean Human Development Index, we stand 135th. So we need to improve our core competencies, skill, and our business models. There is a huge scale where we need to improve a lot. And at the same time, over 50% of our population is affected from either undernutrition or overnutrition, or calorie protein micronutrient nutrition deficiency. What exactly it means is malnutrition is a long lasting consequences when you have a community which is 50% undernourished and you are aspiring for one of the biggest economies in the world. Basically, when you have a child with a diminished mental ability or a learning capacity or school performance in childhood, so ultimately that results with lesser earning capacity as an adult. So to develop as a nation, to develop as a successful economy, we need to concentrate on these areas. And we, being the biotechnologists or a life science faculties and staffs and students and professors, we need to think very precisely on how to fix these undernourishment, or how to produce a nutritious food and how to cater the nutritious food. And if you go onto the all the table where the kind of fruits that we need, we are short in it. The kind of meat that we need, we are short in it. The eggs, there are so many other things that we produce. Of course, in cereals, pulses, and other things, we are almost surplus. But once it comes to these nutritious profile, certainly we are lacking in huge gap. This is where we need to develop the technologies and kind of process improvement, storage capacities. All that is where we need to develop a technology. And once it comes to malnutrition, at the same time we do face other issues like obesity. Like 20% of adults and 20% of the school going children are obese in our country. How to address this? And ultimately, all this results with high population of diabetics in our country. Now it's India is home to 77 million diabetics. How to address all these issues? And this is the sort of nutrition and other disease related things. And India also having other issues with water. The total water that is available for us is 1,123 billion cubic meters, but we are almost close to reach 1,093 billion cubic meters by this year. I mean, the last year. So we are almost touching the point where we didn't get enough fresh water for our agriculture, our domestic use, and so on. So these are, definite sources. It's not a indefinite source. It's a limit on water availability. So how to? There are a lot of technologies that we could build around it. Now there are a lot of agriculture universities and biotechnology companies and other companies that assist these technologies. You can develop sort of washing machine that use very less water, or a showers, and even toiletries and so on, wherever you could reduce the water and at the same time recycle and reuse the this water. I know where biotechnologies have a huge role to play in developing eco-friendly processes and products for recycling of water and so on. And also developing hybrids, where hybrid varieties of rice, where it had reduced 30 to 40% of water usage. So these are sort of drought resistant varieties and so on. And India also faces a lot of challenges with pollution. India stands third most polluted country in the world. These are realities. This is what we are. So how to come out of this? So we need to build. Most. India is almost having a air quality, especially in cities like Delhi, Bangalore, and so on. We are almost close to unhealthy for sensitive groups. So those people having asthma cannot really walk around in our cities. So especially kids and so on. So because the particulate matter in our air is quite high. Once it comes to air quality, we need to design our cities eco-friendly. We need to have segregate our business, and we need to have different economical growth stratas. You need not to concentrate this, decentralized, more centralized marketing. It has to be decentralized marketing. It applies everywhere. Or satellite townships. This is a sort of totality. So where we need to address issues around this. And as I mentioned, food and nutrition. 4 out of 10 children in our country are chronic undernutrition or stunting. It's a very big number, which is around 4 out of 10 children is around 40% of our children are undernourished or stunting. Which basically stunting happens the loss of muscle mass. The protein malnutrition. That's what exactly it means to me. So India ranked 72 among 113 countries that are assessed by the Global Food Security Index. And so we need to gear up in this also to address this. So now India stands 102nd out of 119 qualifying countries once it comes to global hunger index. So we are having a serious concern here once it comes to food and nutrition. We need to have these proper channels to produce high nutrient varieties, and also to increase the yield. So pest control, drought resistant varieties, high yielding varieties, where you can deploy. There are different technologies that are available in recent developments in synthetic biology, recent developments in CRISPR-Cas technology, and hybrid technologies. There are a lot of technologies where we can deploy these technologies into our agriculture system and basic research to get those ends met. So exactly, diet is another issue where we need to cut our sugar consumption and red meat by half. So while vegetables and fruit and pulses and nuts must be double. So as I said, we don't have enough fruits and nuts. So this is a place. This is an opportunity where you can develop hybrid varieties for fruit bearing crops and so on. Basically horticulture crops for vegetables and fruits. And this malnutrition is not just for India. It's viewed across the world, and it's spread across the world. So it's a problem of the whole world. So we need to address. So whatever the technologies or hybrid that we develop, it is not just for India. It is for the mankind. It is for the whole world. That's what basically I want to emphasize on. And at the same time, urbanization is a reality. Now, there are some statistics says by 2050, over 70 billion people would live in city, which means, sorry, 7 billion people, which is like 70% of the world population is going to live in cities. So then there are a lot of challenges that are associated with cities. Now people are coming up with, are getting awareness with hydroponics, aeroponics, rooftop cultivation, and so on. With that, that's where you can develop strategies to popularize them, to bring awareness among the communities, to practice those things, because we are going to live in cities. We cannot avoid. And after this pandemics has seen little reverse in that strategy or that process. There are some people, those who left cities and go back to A or sorry, B and C cities, but still most of the population are try to live in cities. So basically, there are technologies that required by the cities could be developed by technologies to cater those needs. And one of the example here is there are bio-inspired buildings. The best example is Eastgate Center in Zimbabwe, where they developed they built a shopping mall inspired by the termite mounds. So where it cools itself, and I mean it regulates its temperature, and it cuts short the energy usage by 30 to 40%. So we being a biotechnologist or a life science um, people, we can understand biology much better. And once I say bio inspire or mimetics or biomimicry, that could be deployed once it comes to traffic signaling or air traffic signaling. We know air traffic, not many accidents happens in the air traffic because it's pretty much well controlled, because the whole traffic is controlled using a technology. It's a technology deployed there. And how to control the similar kind of traffic in the cities? The best example is, if you take a cell, around 10 to tens of thousands of reactions happens at time. 10 to 15,000 genes expresses at any given point of time. So these trafficking happens within the cell very precisely. If there is some mismatch, we call it as a that could leads to catastrophic events or sort of a issue with the system. So a cell, it is so small, but still it manages its signaling and trafficking of these materials from one organelle to the other. Do we get any sort of knowledge from this and deploy those technologies into air trafficking, into control over city trafficking, or design of cities and so here, and here another example where spider's web technology was used in suspension brakes, parachute lines, bulletproof vests, and so on. Where there are a lot of things that we could, these diatoms and microalgae ultrastructures can inspire a jewelry maker, where he could bring out a different design for their customers. There is a lot to offer by biology or biotechnologies. As I mentioned, synthetic biology products and technologies, and where India, we have several enabling technologies and core products available in the market, as a technology, but we really didn't use to its fullest possible. Once it comes to synthetic biology products by country, USA, UK, Netherlands, Switzerland, even France, small countries are ahead of us. We being the biggest or aspiring the biggest economy, and also one of the second largest population and one of the biggest democratic country, we need to deploy the available technologies so that we could produce several products, chemicals, foods, industrial enzymes, medicines, and so personal cares, so many other things that could be built by using or deploying the synthetic biology and related technologies like CRISPR technologies and so on. I mean, basically to get a clear picture. So most of the people are saying there is a sixth wave of innovation, especially once it comes to sustainability and radical resource productivity, biomimicry, green chemistry, industrial ecology, renewable energy, green nanotechnology. These are the areas where it could see a sixth wave of innovation. As we see in the first wave, we developed iron, water power, mechanization, textiles, and so on. But in this, in the fifth wave, 1990s to and onwards, what we see was a digital innovation or a biotechnology innovation or software or IT innovation and all. But now this is a era of biology where we can have this technology, and enabling this technology, we could really have a role to play. And as what I would like to address here is we have a lot of opportunities and there are a lot of current issues that we could see as an opportunity. There is a rise in population, and there are pandemics and infectious diseases are become quite normal these days, and rise of non-communicable diseases like diabetes, CVD, uh, and neurological disorders, stress-related disorders. These are going to go rise, and less land for agriculture, malnutrition and food security, climate change, urbanization and pollution, sanitation, and less availability of fresh water. These are some of the challenges, and there are opportunities where we can develop high yielding varieties, resistance to disease by proper nutrition. Zinc has become popular in these days after this pandemics, right? So there could be sort of vegetables that are rich in zinc could be produced, and more nutrients. And there are a lot of green technologies that could cut short or what we say is bio cell or biofactories, where you can reduce lot of pollutants, and the integrated technologies where you can integrate IoT with agriculture, or robotics with agriculture, or robotics with bio. There are a lot of integrated technologies that we could build. And as I said, biomimetics and biomimicry is one of the ways we could learn the management. Always world, I mean, this nature makes things very precise and sustainable because it has its lab or its R&D is from last 3.5 billion years. It is being doing the same thing. So we have a lot of things to be learned by this biomimicry that could be deployed, as I said, into every spheres of our life. And there are a lot of irrigation technologies like earlier we drip irrigation and all were popular. Now we could think about hydroponics, aeroponics, and so on, or rooftop gardening and so on. So for I mean, you why these another two slides I'm going to close or end my talk here. What I want to mention here is there are funding life cycle of a startup. There is an idea or basic research you do, and then you develop a prototype, and then once you develop a prototype, you develop that into a pilot scale up, or in terms of basic research, in vivo characterization to preclinical characterization, or commercial scale up, and then commercialization or getting into the market, or upon regulatory approvals your vaccines or therapeutics could get into the market. So in the beginning there are a lot of government aided grants are available for any aspiring entrepreneur in this event. There are projects that would also support both the independent entrepreneurs and also the entrepreneurs in the academy, where they could apply for some of these grants and get those grants, and then later on you can get some angel investors and then venture capital, and then once you develop a commercial product, then you can get a equity based funding or debt funding. So this is the life cycle of a startup or an entrepreneur. And then mostly these are the problems that we generally face, especially we call it as a valley of death that we see during the scale up and commercial scale up stage. So all of a sudden there is a huge crisis of fund happens, then most of the startups collapse up there. So to have a better a sustainability, you need to have that kind of a vision. What is my, you need to think ahead of your time, and you need to plan your financial needs ahead of your time. If you are having a company, you should manage at least for another 1 year, or at least 2 quarters ahead of your progress. So that's how you can come out of this valley of death. Otherwise most of the startups would collapse during this their pilot scale or during their commercial scale up before even getting into the market. So with these slides, I would like to thank all of you. And if you have any specific questions or any specific doubts, I would be happy to answer you. Thank you all. Hello, ma'am.
Yes, sir. I can. Thank you, sir, for that informative talk.
Thank you, ma'am. If there are any questions from the participants, I
Participants, if
would be
you have
happy
any
to.
queries or questions, please type it in the chat box or unmute yourself and you can ask the questions. Participants, any questions? So looks like there are no questions from the participants end. So we will officially conclude the session. On behalf of the staff, students and the management at the Oxford College of Engineering, I, Salma, would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Dayanand for his acceptance of our invite and being the guest speaker for this session. So thank you so much. I hope all the participants have been enriched with the knowledge that you've provided us in the topic. Sir, I think there is one person who's asking a question.
Ma'am, please.
Dr. Sanjeev, you have any questions? You can post it in the chat box.